The internet is on fire tonight, and fans are shocked by what just exploded across timelines. Just when everyone thought the Frost family drama had finally cooled down, a mysterious private clip allegedly tied to Kirk Frost sends shockwaves straight through reality TV history. And this time, Rasheeda isn't crying, explaining, or staying silent. No, she's stepping fully into what fans are calling her villain era. Sources claim the clip didn't just leak, it detonated. Group chats lit up, blogs scrambled, fans refreshed their feeds in disbelief as whispers turned into screaming headlines. And at the center of it all, Rasheeda reportedly made a move nobody saw coming. Instead of retreating, she leaned in, eyes cold, words sharp, and energy unapologetic. Emotions ran high as insiders say she felt betrayed not just as a wife but as a woman who had already forgiven too much. Meanwhile, Jasmine Washington was suddenly dragged back into the spotlight, with fans accusing, defending, and dissecting every old interview and cryptic post she's ever made. The family was left divided, friendships were tested, and long-buried resentments came roaring back to life. What really pushed Rasheeda over the edge? Who leaked the clip, and why now? And is this calculated revenge, emotional self-defense, or the final chapter before everything collapses? One thing is certain, the calm is gone. The masks are off. And as the truth threatens to spill even further, fans are bracing themselves for a fallout that could change everything they thought they knew. The night everything cracked open didn't start with a scream or a headline, it started with a vibration. Rasheeda's phone buzzed once, then again, then wouldn't stop. Group chats she hadn't opened in months were suddenly alive, lighting up like a warning signal she couldn't ignore. At first she brushed it off, thinking it was just more blog chatter, the same recycled rumors that always came with her name. But then she saw the message that made her stomach drop, a single sentence from someone she trusted, saying they were sorry and asking if she was okay. That's when the air in the room changed. She locked herself in the bathroom, sat on the edge of the tub, and watched as link after link flooded in. Fans were shocked, and even before she clicked anything, she could feel it in her bones that whatever was out there wasn't small. Emotions ran high as she finally tapped the screen, her face reflected back at her in the dark glass like she already knew what she was about to see. Insiders would later say this was the exact moment Rasheeda stopped being heard and started getting angry. Across town, Kirk was pacing, his phone pressed to his ear, voice low and tense as he told someone to take it down, make calls, fix it. But the internet doesn't forget, and it definitely doesn't listen. Screenshots were already spreading, captions getting nastier by the minute. Fans were dissecting every frame, every shadow, arguing about what it meant, who leaked it, and why now. Some defended Rasheeda fiercely, saying she deserved peace after everything she'd endured. Others sharpened their words, dragging old wounds back into the light. By the time Rasheeda stepped out of the bathroom, her hands were steady but her eyes were different. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She sat down, opened her laptop, and began scrolling through comments like she was studying an enemy. People close to her say that's when the switch flipped. Years of being the strong one, the forgiving one, the woman who held the family together while swallowing her pride, all of it came rushing back. This wasn't just about a clip. This was about control, humiliation, and the feeling of being played in front of the world. Her phone rang again, this time it was Kirk. She let it ring. Then again. She finally answered, not with a greeting, but with silence. Kirk started talking fast, tripping over his words, saying it wasn't what it looked like, that things were being twisted, that someone was out to destroy them. Rasheeda listened, eyes fixed on the wall, jaw clenched so tight it ached. When he finished, waiting for her to respond, she finally spoke, her voice calm but sharp enough to cut. She told him she was tired of explanations that came too late. Meanwhile, Jasmine's name was suddenly everywhere again. Fans dragged up old interviews, old receipts, connecting dots whether they made sense or not. Her social media comments turned toxic in minutes, accusations flying from every direction. Some claimed she knew more than she ever admitted. Others said she was being used as a distraction, a convenient villain in someone else's mess. Jasmine posted a vague message about truth always coming out, and that only poured gasoline on the fire. Emotions ran high as fans argued about whether this was a warning or a threat. Inside the Frost household, the tension was suffocating. Family members took sides without even saying it out loud. Some urged Rasheeda to stay quiet, protect the brand, think about the kids. Others whispered that enough was enough, that she had been embarrassed publicly one too many times. The family was left divided, moving around each other carefully, like one wrong word could cause everything to explode. Rasheeda felt it all, the pressure, the expectations, the familiar demand to be graceful when she was bleeding. Late that night, she did something no one expected. She opened her notes app and started typing. Not a statement, not an apology, but a list. Every moment she felt disrespected. Every promise broken. Every time she chose silence over truth to keep the peace. Insiders say this list wasn't meant for the public, but it changed everything. As she wrote, her anger sharpened into clarity. This wasn't about revenge, it was about reclaiming her voice in a world that had grown too comfortable speaking for her. Kirk tried again, this time showing up in person, knocking on the door like he was afraid of what waited on the other side. Rasheeda didn't open it right away. When she finally did, she didn't step aside to let him in. She stood there, blocking the doorway, meeting his eyes with a look he hadn't seen in years. He started to apologize again, but she cut him off, telling him she didn't want words, she wanted honesty, something she felt had been missing for far too long. Outside, blogs were already predicting a breakup, a public meltdown, another tearful scene. But inside that house, something quieter and more dangerous was happening. Rasheeda was done being predictable. She told Kirk that whatever happened next would be on her terms, not his, not the fans, not the blogs. That was the first time he realized he might actually be losing control of the narrative. As dawn approached, Rasheeda sat alone, scrolling through fan messages, some supportive, some cruel, all demanding a reaction. She could feel the weight of thousands of eyes on her, waiting. And instead of shrinking under it, she straightened her shoulders. Fans would later say this was when they saw a new side of her emerging, colder, bolder, unapologetic. The villain era whispers began right there, in the quiet before the storm, as Rasheeda prepared to do something no one was ready for, and the fallout was only just beginning. The sun was barely up when Rasheeda finally broke her silence, but not in the way anyone expected. She didn't go live, didn't call a blogger, didn't rush to clear her name. Instead, she posted a single photo, black and white, no caption, comments turned on. Within seconds, fans flooded in, dissecting the angle, her expression, the timing. Fans were shocked because the image didn't scream weakness, it whispered warning. Emotions ran high as people realized she was choosing strategy over sympathy. Kirk saw the post before anyone else could explain it to him. His phone buzzed nonstop as friends, managers, even distant relatives asked what was going on and what Rasheeda was about to do. He tried calling again, but this time the call went straight to voicemail. The silence was louder than any argument they'd ever had. For the first time, Kirk felt the balance of power shifting, and it terrified him. Behind closed doors, Rasheeda was already 10 steps ahead. She had called a meeting with people she trusted, not family, not friends who might soften her edges, but professionals who understood optics, timing, and damage control. Except this wasn't about cleaning up Kirk's mess. She made that clear from the start. This was about protecting herself, even if that meant letting everything else burn. Those in the room later said her tone was calm, almost detached, which made it even more unsettling. This wasn't an emotional reaction, it was a calculated move. As the day went on, more details about the alleged clip began circulating, each version more dramatic than the last. Blogs hinted that the leak wasn't random, that someone close had flipped, tired of keeping secrets. Fans argued over theories, dragging everyone connected into the mess. The family was left divided publicly now, not just behind closed doors. Some relatives posted cryptic messages about loyalty and betrayal, while others went completely silent, clearly choosing sides without saying names. Jasmine, watching the chaos unfold, decided to speak up again. This time, her words were sharper, less vague. She claimed she was tired of being painted as the villain when others were hiding behind marriages and money. Fans were shocked by her boldness, and the comments exploded. Some praised her for finally standing her ground. Others accused her of chasing clout and reopening wounds that never healed. Emotions ran high as her name trended again, pulling her deeper into a storm she claimed she never started. Rasheeda watched Jasmine's statement without reacting outwardly, but inside, something hardened. People close to her say she felt manipulated all over again, like pieces on a chessboard were being moved without her consent. She remembered every time she'd been advised to stay quiet for the sake of peace, every time her pain was minimized to protect someone else's image. That was no longer an option. Later that evening, Kirk finally managed to catch her alone. No cameras, no phones, just the weight of years between them. He tried to explain himself again, his voice cracking as he talked about pressure, mistakes, fear of losing everything. Rasheeda listened, arms crossed, her face unreadable. When he finished, she told him something that stunned him. She said the clip wasn't the worst part. The worst part was realizing how easily her dignity had been gambled away. She told him fans were shocked not because of the clip, but because of how familiar the story felt. Another woman forgiving, another man apologizing too late. She said she refused to play that role again. Kirk asked what that meant, his voice barely above a whisper. Rasheeda didn't answer directly. She just said change was coming, whether he was ready for it or not. Outside their conversation, the internet kept spinning its own narrative. Think pieces popped up debating whether Rasheeda was finally done or just building suspense. Some fans celebrated what they called her glow-up energy, while others warned that going full villain could cost her everything she'd worked for. The family was left divided in the comments, mirroring the real-life fractures forming off-screen. That night, Rasheeda did something else unexpected. She started responding to fans selectively, liking comments that called out double standards, hearting messages from women who said they saw themselves in her. Each small interaction felt intentional, like breadcrumbs leading somewhere bigger. Fans were shocked to see her engaging so directly, and speculation grew that a major statement or reveal was coming. Kirk lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment he thought he still had control. For the first time, he realized Rasheeda wasn't reacting to him anymore. She was moving independently, and that scared him more than any argument ever could. He wondered if this was the beginning of the end, not just of their marriage, but of the image he'd built around himself. As midnight passed, Rasheeda reopened the Notes app on her phone. She added more to the list, names, dates, moments that never made it to camera. With each word, she felt lighter, like shedding a skin she'd worn for too long. This wasn't about destroying anyone, she told herself. It was about finally telling the story from her side. Somewhere between exhaustion and resolve, she made a decision that would change everything. She wasn't going to wait for another leak, another accusation, another apology. She was going to flip the script entirely. And as she set her phone down, eyes fixed on the darkness ahead, one thing was clear. The calm everyone hoped for was never coming back, and what followed next would push this drama into a place no one could walk away from. By morning, the tension had spread beyond blogs and comment sections and into real conversations people were having at work, at home, everywhere. Fans were shocked at how fast the narrative was shifting, and Rasheeda could feel it. She didn't need analytics to tell her the energy was different. People weren't asking if she would forgive Kirk anymore. They were asking what she was going to do next. That alone felt like power. She finally decided to meet with Kirk again, but this time it wasn't about reconciliation. It was about boundaries. They sat across from each other, the air thick with unspoken truths. Kirk tried to lead the conversation, suggesting joint statements, damage control, appearances to show unity. Rasheeda stopped him mid-sentence. She told him she was done performing stability for an audience that never protected her. Emotions ran high as Kirk realized she wasn't negotiating, she was informing him. He asked if Jasmine was part of this shift, if the past was being dragged back into the present because of jealousy or revenge. Rasheeda laughed, not out of humor, but disbelief. She told him Jasmine wasn't the root, she was the symptom. The real issue was years of silence disguised as strength. The room went quiet after that. Kirk had no response because for once, the truth didn't leave him any space to maneuver. Outside their bubble, Jasmine watched Rasheeda's silence like it was a ticking clock. She knew something was coming, and the uncertainty made her restless. She went live unexpectedly, her voice shaking at first, then growing steadier as she spoke. She claimed she had protected secrets for too long, that she was tired of being blamed while others rewrote history. Fans were shocked by her tone, and emotions ran high as she hinted that Rasheeda didn't know everything yet. That live sent shockwaves everywhere. Some fans believed Jasmine was finally ready to expose more. Others accused her of trying to provoke Rasheeda into a public breakdown. The family was left divided again, this time even more visibly. Some relatives publicly defended Rasheeda, praising her restraint. Others warned that staying silent while others spoke could be dangerous. Rasheeda saw it all, and still chose not to respond. Instead, she focused inward. She met with her kids, explaining in age-appropriate ways that things might feel different for a while. That conversation broke her more than any clip or headline ever could. But even in that pain, she felt clarity. She knew she couldn't keep sacrificing her peace to maintain an illusion. Fans often forget the human cost behind the drama, but Rasheeda was done forgetting herself. Kirk, feeling the walls closing in, started confiding in people he thought were loyal. Some listened, some leaked. Whispers began circulating that he was panicking, that he didn't know how to fix what was spiraling out of control. Fans were shocked to see sympathy shift away from him as more people questioned why accountability always seemed to arrive after exposure. One evening, Rasheeda finally sat down and recorded herself. Not live, not for immediate posting. Just a raw recording, her voice steady but heavy. She talked about betrayal, not naming names, but painting emotions so clearly that anyone watching would know exactly who she meant. She spoke about loving someone enough to forgive them multiple times, and how that love can slowly turn into self-betrayal. By the end of the recording, there were tears in her eyes, but her voice never broke. She didn't post it, not yet. She saved it, knowing timing was everything. That restraint frustrated fans, but it also intrigued them. Emotions ran high in comment sections as people debated whether she was being strategic or scared. Those closest to her knew the truth. She was waiting for the right moment to make sure her words couldn't be twisted or drowned out. Then came another twist. A supposed source claimed there were more clips, more receipts, and that the first leak was only the beginning. Blogs ran with it immediately. Fans were shocked all over again, and panic rippled through Kirk's camp. He confronted Rasheeda in desperation, asking if she knew anything about more leaks. She looked at him calmly and said she wasn't the one he needed to fear anymore. That sentence stayed with him. For the first time, Kirk realized this situation had grown bigger than their marriage. It was about narratives, about who controlled the truth. And he was losing that battle. The family was left divided not just emotionally, but strategically. Some pushed for full transparency. Others begged for silence to avoid total collapse. As days passed, Rasheeda's calm became the most unsettling part of the entire situation. Fans were shocked by how unbothered she appeared publicly while chaos swirled around her privately. But that calm wasn't weakness. It was preparation. Every move, every pause, every silence was intentional. One night, as she replayed the recording she'd made, she realized something had shifted permanently. She wasn't waiting for permission to speak anymore. She was choosing when. And when that moment came, it wouldn't just be a response to a clip or a rumor. It would be a reckoning. As she turned off the screen and sat in the quiet, she knew the next step would push this drama past the point of no return, and once she crossed that line, there would be no going back. The pressure finally reached a boiling point when a major blog dropped what it called an exclusive behind-the-scenes breakdown of the alleged clip, complete with unnamed sources and dramatic language meant to provoke reactions. Fans were shocked by how confidently the story was framed, as if the truth had already been decided without anyone involved speaking fully. Emotions ran high online, and Rasheeda knew the longer she waited, the more others would fill the silence with their own versions of her life. That was the night she decided to move. Not impulsively, not emotionally, but deliberately. She sent out a single message to a small circle, telling them to be ready. No context, no explanation. Just readiness. People who knew her well understood what that meant. Rasheeda didn't act unless she was sure, and when she finally did, it was never small. Kirk sensed the shift before it became public. Something in her tone changed when they spoke, something final. He tried one last time to appeal to their history, reminding her of everything they had built together. Rasheeda didn't deny it. She told him they had built a lot, but she had carried most of it on her back while he kept lighting fires behind her. That was when his frustration turned to anger. He accused her of trying to destroy him, of enjoying the attention. Rasheeda didn't raise her voice. She told him calmly that if the truth destroyed him, then it wasn't her fault. That exchange leaked almost immediately. Not the exact words, but the energy of it. Blogs reported tension escalating, insiders claiming the marriage was hanging by a thread. Fans were shocked by how quickly sympathy swung again, this time almost entirely toward Rasheeda. Women flooded comment sections saying they recognized that calm, that moment when hurt turns into resolve. The phrase villain era started trending again, but now it sounded less like an insult and more like a crown. Jasmine, feeling the walls close in, made another move. She released screenshots, carefully cropped, hinting at conversations that suggested she hadn't been lying all these years. The internet exploded. Emotions ran high as fans debated authenticity, timelines, and motives. Some believed her immediately. Others accused her of manipulating the moment to save herself. The family was left divided yet again, not just on who to believe, but on how far this exposure should go. Rasheeda watched it all unfold with a strange sense of detachment. The chaos no longer felt personal, it felt inevitable. She finally posted a story, just text on a black background, saying silence should never be mistaken for ignorance. Nothing more, nothing less. Fans were shocked by how powerful such a simple statement felt. Blogs rushed to interpret it, and suddenly the conversation shifted again. Now everyone was waiting for her. Behind the scenes, Rasheeda sat down with the raw recording she had made days earlier. She listened to her own voice, steady, wounded, honest. She realized it wasn't enough anymore. The story had grown, mutated, been twisted by too many mouths. If she was going to speak, it had to be complete. So she recorded again, this time longer, deeper. She talked about humiliation, about choosing forgiveness publicly while healing privately, about how strength can be exploited when people assume you'll always stay quiet. She spoke about trust, not just in marriage, but in the people around you who watch you bleed and still ask you to smile for the camera. She didn't name Jasmine. She didn't drag Kirk directly. But every word landed exactly where it needed to. By the time she finished, there was no doubt whose story it was. Kirk found out she had recorded something before it was released. Panic set in. He begged her to let him hear it first, to make changes, to soften it. Rasheeda refused. She told him this was the first thing she had ever done without considering how it would protect him. That sentence broke something between them permanently. He realized he no longer had access to her inner world, and that scared him more than public backlash ever could. When the video finally dropped, it didn't explode immediately. It spread slowly, like a shockwave. Fans were shocked by the tone. There was no screaming, no insults, no theatrics. Just controlled honesty. Emotions ran high as viewers felt like they were being spoken to directly, like they were witnessing a woman choosing herself in real time. Comment sections filled with messages of support, reflection, and shared pain. Of course, backlash came too. Critics accused her of calculated timing, of playing victim while benefiting from drama. Rasheeda expected that. What she didn't expect was how little it affected her. For the first time, the noise didn't drown out her own voice. The family was left divided in a way that felt permanent now. Some relatives praised her courage. Others accused her of airing dirty laundry. Rasheeda listened to none of it. Jasmine responded within hours, visibly emotional, claiming the video erased her pain and painted her as collateral damage. Fans were shocked by the rawness of her response, and emotions ran high again as the internet split into sides. Rasheeda didn't reply. She had said what she needed to say. Everything else felt like echo. Kirk tried to salvage what he could. Interviews, statements, damage control meetings. But every attempt felt reactive compared to Rasheeda's calm certainty. People began to see the pattern clearly. Accountability only showed up when exposure forced it. Fans were shocked that it had taken this long for the power dynamic to flip so completely. Days passed, and the chaos slowly settled into something heavier. Not resolution, but reality. Rasheeda focused on her work, her kids, her own healing. She stopped checking comments obsessively. She stopped waiting for apologies. The villain era label stuck, but she wore it differently now. Not as a mask, but as armor. In quiet moments, she reflected on how close she had come to losing herself trying to save something that kept hurting her. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Relationships were fractured, trust was broken beyond repair. But for the first time, she felt aligned with herself. Fans continued to debate, to speculate, to demand more. But Rasheeda had already given them the most important thing. Her truth, on her terms. And whether the world loved her or judged her for it, she knew one thing for certain. She would never go back to being silent to make others comfortable. Whatever came next would be built on honesty, even if it meant standing alone. The aftermath didn't bring peace, it brought distance. Not just between Rasheeda and Kirk, but between everyone connected to them. Conversations stopped mid-sentence when certain names were mentioned. Rooms felt colder. The family was left divided in a way that couldn't be fixed with a meeting or a prayer circle. Fans were shocked to see how quickly unity turned into quiet avoidance, like everyone was afraid to say the wrong thing and become the next headline. Rasheeda noticed it immediately. Invitations slowed. Calls felt shorter. Even support sometimes came wrapped in caution. She understood it, but it still stung. Choosing yourself often comes with isolation, and no one really warns you about that part. Emotions ran high on nights when the house felt too quiet, when she replayed memories that now felt like they belonged to someone else. But every time doubt crept in, she reminded herself why she started this. Silence had almost erased her. Speaking saved her. Kirk tried to rebrand his image aggressively. New interviews, controlled environments, carefully worded apologies that never quite landed. Fans were shocked by how disconnected his words sounded compared to Rasheeda's calm clarity. Every time he spoke, comments filled with people asking why accountability always seemed delayed. Emotions ran high as viewers pointed out the pattern, how remorse followed exposure, never the other way around. Behind closed doors, Kirk felt the weight of it all crushing him. For the first time, there was no one shielding him from consequences. Rasheeda wasn't cleaning up after him anymore. That realization hit harder than any public criticism. He tried to reach her emotionally, not as a husband, but as someone who once knew her deeply. She listened, but she didn't bend. Compassion no longer meant self-sacrifice. Jasmine's world changed too. The attention she had once seemed to want now felt suffocating. Fans were shocked to see her pull back, posting less, speaking carefully. Emotions ran high as people accused her of starting something she couldn't finish. Others defended her, saying she had been trapped in a narrative she never controlled. The truth, as always, lived somewhere in between. Rasheeda didn't take joy in Jasmine's discomfort. She had moved past the need for villains. This wasn't about winning. It was about surviving with her integrity intact. When asked privately if she felt vindicated, she said no. Vindication implied waiting for others to be wrong. She had stopped waiting. As weeks passed, the drama stopped trending but didn't disappear. It settled into something heavier, more personal. Fans were shocked by how quiet Rasheeda became online, but those close to her knew the silence was intentional. She was rebuilding, not retreating. Emotions ran high internally as she confronted parts of herself she had ignored for years. The version of her that thought endurance was the same as strength had finally been laid to rest. One night, she sat alone, flipping through old photos. Smiles that once felt genuine now looked rehearsed. Moments she remembered as love now felt like compromise. She allowed herself to grieve, not just the relationship, but the version of herself that believed she had to suffer quietly to be worthy of commitment. That grief was necessary. It cleared space. The family tried to regroup, to find some neutral ground. A dinner was suggested, then postponed, then quietly cancelled. No one said why. Everyone knew. The family was left divided not because of hatred, but because truth had disrupted comfort. And comfort, once lost, is rarely missed by those who were never truly comfortable to begin with. Rasheeda focused on her children, on stability, on creating a sense of normal that didn't rely on pretending. Those conversations were hard, honest, and sometimes messy. But they were real. Fans often forget that the loudest drama has the quietest victims. Rasheeda refused to let that cycle repeat. Kirk watched her from a distance now, realizing too late that the woman he once underestimated had become someone he could no longer reach. His regret felt genuine, but regret without change has an expiration date. Rasheeda had passed hers. The villain era label followed her everywhere, but it evolved. Fans were shocked to see how many women reclaimed it alongside her, redefining it as a refusal to be manipulated, a rejection of silence. Emotions ran high as conversations shifted from gossip to reflection. People weren't just watching drama anymore, they were seeing themselves. Rasheeda eventually spoke again, briefly, intentionally. She said growth doesn't always look graceful, and healing doesn't always look forgiving. She said boundaries are not punishments, they are protection. That message resonated far beyond the scandal that sparked it. The noise softened after that. Not because everything was resolved, but because something had finally been understood. The story didn't end with reconciliation or collapse. It ended with separation, clarity, and a future undefined. Rasheeda didn't need closure from Kirk, Jasmine, or the public. She had given it to herself. Fans were shocked not by a final twist, but by the absence of one. Sometimes the most dramatic ending is a woman choosing herself and walking away without looking back. Now it's your turn. You've seen how this story unfolded, how emotions ran high, how fans were shocked at every twist, and how the family was left divided when the truth finally came to light. But the biggest question is still hanging in the air. Was Rasheeda stepping into her villain era, or was she simply choosing herself after being pushed too far? Depending on how you see it, this changes everything. Do you think Kirk truly understood what he lost, or was it already too late by the time accountability showed up? Do you believe Jasmine was finally telling her truth, or was she adding fuel to a fire that was already out of control? And most importantly, would you have stayed silent for peace, or spoken up even if it meant becoming the villain in someone else's story? This drama may have slowed down online, but the questions are far from answered. And that's why your voice matters here. Jump into the comments and tell us exactly where you stand. No holding back. Let us know who you believe, who disappointed you, and what you think happens next if this story ever resurfaces again. If you enjoyed this deep dive and want more intense breakdowns like this, make sure you hit like so we know to keep them coming. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next shocking update, unexpected twist, or explosive reveal. And if this story made you feel something, share it with someone who's been following this drama just as closely as you have. This isn't just gossip, it's a conversation. And we want to hear from you. So sound off below, stay locked in, and remember, sometimes the real tea isn't what leaks online, it's what finally gets said out loud.